right.
Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. Very good. All right. It is now 7 o'clock.
You don't have a gavel, do you?
Hey, good evening. I would like to call the regularly scheduled Middlebury Selectboard meeting of Tuesday, July 25th, 2023 to order. Our first action is the approval of the agenda.
Second.
There it is. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And Heather included. We've got unanimity. The next item is the approval of the consent agenda. On this, we have the minutes of our last meeting. There are no liquor licenses. We have some municipal grants in aid agreements, town manager's report, including the Turning Point Center of Addison County's 180-day report on the National Opioid Settlement Funds and how well they're spending that to support our community. The due dates for taxes for fiscal year 24, the setting of the educational property tax rate for fiscal year 24. I would accept a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any items for further discussion, for polling, for anything?
Just a reminder that the tax due dates are November 15th, 2023 and March 15th, 2024.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Heather?
I'm abstaining from the minutes, Andy.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm in favor.
Perfect. Thank you. Moving on. Our next item is citizen comments. This is a time for anyone who's present, either in person or joining us on Zoom, to address us on any matter that's not on the agenda. Is there anyone here for that purpose? No hands?
Big crowd.
I know. I
We've got a lot of people. You're all here for agenda items.
Wow.
Boo.
We're done by 7:30.
All right.
Greg Prescott.
Come on up.
Yep.
Yes, please.
There's no mic. Oh, no mic.
We can grab that mic.
Grab that one.
Yes.
There.
Perfect. Great.
Greg Prescott. I live in East Middlebury, 468 East Main Street. I just wanted to come and give an appreciation to Emily and the Public Works crew. Our house lost a significant portion of our backyard, or the river took it back. And that was a really terrifying moment for us. And the Public Works crew, the Vermont Highway Department, showed up and did some fabulous work for myself, for my wife, and for just our community. So I just wanted to say thank you and publicly appreciate them.
Thanks so much. That's great. Those pictures of your backyard were very scary. Even, separated by days from the event. Like, wow. Anyone else with a public comment?
We're gonna have more on that later on.
I think we do have
Okay.
more
Okay.
discussion. All right. Moving right along, our next item of business is the Bird Scooters proposed memorandum of understanding.
It's back.
Yeah, it is back. This was right around when I first joined the select board, I think, that this had come up, and we had agreed to go forward with a pilot project, but they didn't have a local coordinator or could not find someone to have responsibility for seeing that these things got charged and placed not in the wrong place. I believe that Chief Hanley was going to discuss this, or are we just going to approve it?
Jeremy Lynch is here from Bird
Oh,
Scooter.
perfect.
And
And here comes the chief. He's right on time. We're running early. It's all good. Yeah, just barely.
So actually, the chief had drafted the MOU with the work of the Public Safety Committee last year.
Right.
We were all on the verge of approving that, but Bird Scooters was unable to find a local person to manage the Bird Scooters. Now they have found someone, so they're back with essentially the same agreement. We did tweak the draft agreement a little bit to put in some provisions about citing of the scooters, some sign off on that and how they're going to be picked up. And Jeremy's provided some additional information about how that is going to happen and how people can contact us if there is an issue.
Excellent.
Well, more to the point, contact Bird.
Yeah, contact Bird.
Yeah, that's not.
Exactly.
How they would call it, they come directly to us in a couple of great ways, so.
When are you planning to launch this?
Probably closer to the end of August.
So only for 2 months then?
Yeah, it's not gonna be long. The good thing is that the FM that we have, so we started at Burlington, we won the Burlington bike share RFP earlier in the summer. So we have running bikes in Burlington right now. And one of the FMs for the bikes lives closer to you guys, lives in Addison actually. So he reached out and said, hey, you guys are trying to do something with them last year. And I said, yes. And so he was like, I'd be willing to do that as well if you'd be interested. So it kind of brought it back around. So there's still some logistics to figure out as far as getting the scooters to him and on our end.
Sure.
Plus, I wanted to give time to obviously speak with the college, kind of get their parameters on the program and what they think about it working and any kind of geofencing we need for them. So it just gives us enough time to do that. And sure, it's going to be a short season, but at least we'll kind of get it started. And then my opinion on a short season, though, kind of gives us a good window into things that need to be tweaked and adjusted and changed. So when they do come back out in the spring, that we can implement those. And then the pro will have learned from those 2 months, and then the program can be better as it runs through its full season next year.
Nice. Where do you house the scooters during the winter?
They'd be stored at the FM's location. If not picked up, it really just depends. Sometimes we'll just come back up and get them. And most likely we'll be probably changing the inventory, so we'll probably just go get them.
So we approved this last year.
Yeah.
Or 2 years ago. And so we were all set to go. So this is pretty much the same deal, right, Chief?
There have been a couple of amendments that we worked out with Jeremy on this, but nothing significant, just as far as where the bikes are going to go and that sort of thing.
And you're still good with this?
Yes.
And Jeremy, FM stands for?
Fleet manager,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions from the board?
No?
So I'll move to approve the proposed MOU agreement with Bird Rides, Inc. to remain in effect until November 30, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor?
I just have, everybody in the public has to understand that we debated this. It went to the Public Health and Safety Committee a couple of times. We probably had 3 meetings on it and did it over and over again. Sounds like we're pushing this through, but it's well thought out. And we understand the plan.
Yeah, and it's a trial and we'll tweak it if there's
Right.
things that don't work. And yeah, I think, great, thanks. All those in favor, please indicate
Aye.
aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Very good. Passes unanimously. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks for being here.
Super, thanks everybody, have a great evening.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
Oh, that's quick. On time.
Glad I could help out.
I didn't.
I couldn't find a parking space. Everything's full all over the place.
Well, isn't it crazy?
They're all seeing Barbie.
Yeah.
That's not what that is.
Excellent.
You need to be issuing parking tickets or something.
Welcome, Emily.
Thank you.
So our next item is an update on the flood damage in Middlebury. When we last met, it was the day of the extensive flooding in many parts of our state. I work in Montpelier. My building had 4 or 5 feet of water in the basement of it as I met here 2 weeks ago. And it felt like Middlebury had been spared. And then lo and behold, a torrential downpour in Ripton really did a number on our friends in East Middlebury. And the glowing report we received on the flood mitigation efforts is maybe tempered by the new information.
So I would not I think we definitely spared ourselves catastrophic flooding with the flood mitigation efforts. I think we have a large crowd here who can attest to it. I think there are the road section, and there's a number of spots that have significant scour or issues, but no major floods went into neighborhoods and into residential areas and destroyed infrastructure. So on that note, I think it was completely effective. I know we have a number of property owners here who definitely had major concerns on their property, and they'll be ongoing if we don't go in and take further measures and sort of reevaluate. I just want to make sure that we're not making a knee-jerk reaction. And I think I haven't met you, Andersons, yet. Hi. But I met most of you when we were in complete emergency panic mode and just trying to solve the immediate problem. And I think now that we've kind of calmed down from that, it's important to step back and really look at what we're dealing with. And so I walked it today with the engineer, one of the engineers from SLR, and with Amy Sheldon. And I think there are, like the wall that was extended down below the gristmill bridge. Maybe can you, Kathleen? I feel like one of those. I'll go through it with the slides because I think that'll be easier to just formulate. So this is the property at 468 East Main Street. Greg just spoke during the public comments, but they essentially live in the area that has the red area, the red band around it. And we went in, they had lost a significant amount of their slope. And my immediate concern in looking at that is that the scour was going to breach the Army Corps wall that has been in place since 1927. And they had already lost stabilization measures on their slope previously. And so there was nothing protecting it anymore. Whereas just downstream, that wall and the berm is still in place and it's vegetated and there's still a lot of rock. And so it's held together really well. If we had lost that section of property any more than we did, it would have been much more catastrophic, and potentially all of those homes would have been severely impacted. So that was sort of the thought process with the immediate measures that we took there. So I did go through Army Corps and also river engineers for the state last weekend. They were both great in answering the phone on a Sunday. Got immediate permissions to get in there and do stabilization. The state engineer met me on site on Monday and looked at what we had done and approved it and said it looked good, and he issued a permit right then and there to keep it all above grade. So I think ideally in this location, it's not a spot that we worked on in the flood resiliency project, but clearly it's a spot that needs attention moving forward. And I think it would be a good spot to sort of construct a more stabilized berm with vegetated matter and also, like incorporate clay and things of that nature into it. But again, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a hydrologist. I've just taken a lot of classes on these things.
I think of scouring as cleaning pans. Does it mean more than just water washing away existing?
So let's look at the next slide.
There we go.
There used to be about 30 feet, 25, 30 feet more yard out behind that garage. And you can still see it if you look at Google Earth and sort of that satellite imagery. So maybe the next one, I forget what I did after that. So that really showed, they lost it. I don't think I'd put a slide in looking under the garage, but it scoured, 5 feet in. It was pretty much to the doorway, if not a little bit beyond. And it's just sitting on a bed of cobbles at this point.
Has the water receded now?
Oh, yeah.
The water is much lower now. Yeah, it's gone down considerably. And so from talking to different neighbors that do have rain gauges in this area, I've heard anywhere from 3.5 inches to 4.5 inches, and it was just so fast. You know, it was over like a 2-hour time frame, just super flashy. This river is really flashy anyway because it's coming from a mountain watershed and then drops down to the plains. And so as soon as you make that flat transition, you lose a lot of material, a lot of sediment, and so then you end up with sandbars, and you know it shifts and moves because of that. So I think this is sort of at the upper end of that transition zone where it's really coming off the mountain and then hits where you have more floodplains and areas like that to work with. So that was my immediate concern, was just getting this area stabilized so that we don't breach that greater wall that has, I think that is from the 1927 flood is my understanding. It's been interesting meeting with different residents. The different berms and measures that have been implemented have been, you know, during these major flooding events. And so 1927 was obviously a significant event in Vermont. And so there is a large stretch that must have been impacted from that storm. And then there was the storm in 1988, I believe. And so then a lot of the southern part of, or the more, I don't know, is it south? It's like more out towards Route 7, like the Aussie berm section. That all got constructed during that that incident. And then I think there was some flooding a few years later. So now it's this segmented approach. But I think moving forward, we need to look at this entire stretch and recognize that there's a lot of infrastructure and a lot of residents within there that, you know, obviously have been impacted by.
Any more slides?
Yeah, there are. Can you keep? So this is the Army Corps berm from 1927. So we essentially tied in to that section of it, just a little bit upstream from there. Keep going, one more down, Kathleen. So that's after, this is when I was out there with the state river engineer, and he approved the work we were doing. So essentially we're keying in huge boulders. You know, they're like 4 to 6 foot, and they're enormous. We were fortunate that Acker was able to secure them from their pit. So they're really well keyed in, which helps prevent scour from getting underneath and then causing further
Did we
issues.
do all that? Public Works?
That was Acker doing it. I think we had one truck helping out. Our crew was still up on North Branch, which is further in the slides. So it was sort of a team effort. I knew it wasn't good when Matt called me at 7 a.m. Saturday morning. I knew, yeah, but they had come in at 3. So this is, I think when I got to the site at 8:30 or something, that was Saturday morning. So it had already dropped considerably. So from talking with residents today, I don't know the exact elevation in Irene, but I think it hit the girders on Gristmill Bridge. I don't know that it overtopped the bridge. And you know. And so I was speaking with somebody today who said they were standing on the Gristmill Bridge at 11:30 Friday night, and a tree that was about 12-inch diameter went through and hit the bridge. Yeah. So the water was right there.
Pretty close. Yeah.
And so it had already dropped, I think, at this point to some degree. But this is as of Tuesday, or the Sunday through Tuesday window of rain that impacted so much of central Vermont. All of the armoring was still in place along that wall.
Right.
And so the Friday night carried that away. And it wasn't quite as big as what we put in the yard just upstream, but it was in, 3-foot diameter. Yeah. So like massive boulders. Wow. To be carried off.
Where are they?
Well, they're downstream now.
Somewhere downstream. That's a great dam somewhere downstream.
Yeah, I know they're downstream. I don't know where. But
The definitely won't set them all in their backyard.
Somebody's backyard's full of them.
I mean, so there are a lot of chutes that were incorporated. And could you go to the next one, Kathleen? So this was later in the week. So that was Thursday. So it had already dropped. And so this shows the sheet piling along the bottom. So that sheet pile,
Was up
I
there.
think that bridge or that wall was having a lot of scouring issues before the flood resiliency project. And so this is one of the measures that definitely had a positive impact. That sheet piling goes down 8 feet. And so totally protected that wall from scouring and causing that to all blow out. I think there are some issues on the downstream end of the sheet piling. It looks like some boulders might have gotten caught up in it and has peeled it away from the concrete. So I have some structural concerns with that. I looked at it today with the engineer, so he's going to do a little more in-depth thought process on that. And I think the stone that was on that wall, I think it was partly aesthetic, but it was partly armoring the wall. But really, those sheets are what is protecting that wall from catastrophic flooding or scour. Structurally, I think it's still fine, even without the armor on it. Okay, next one.
Okay. I move to approve the proposed agreement between the town of Middlebury and LN Consulting, Inc. relating to the design proposal for the Middlebury Municipal Building Solar Development Project for $3,500.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Very good. Unanimous. Before you go, is there any thought to the ice rink and the potential for solar there?
I felt like it was all a little too rushed to
Sure.
formulate it all at once, and with the roofing repairs and which direction we were taking with the roofing repairs and what it could structurally hold, we didn't include it in this.
Yeah.
But we can easily. I think we should use this as a lesson, and then when it works and we have a good result, then we can go back. I know there was talk about the rec center, there was talk about memorials, so
Yeah.
use this as an approach that we can work off of for further.
Perfect. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Do we have an update on South Street?
We don't have an update on South Street. Our engineer did email the project manager on Monday, I think, and I have not seen a response yet. I know, so Casella is our prime contractor. They've been pulled off of every other construction site that I'm aware of to go to emergency.
Gotcha.
So, and my concern with South Street, if we do bump the schedule any further back, it puts us at the late window for paving.
Yeah.
And so once we hear back from Casella, we'll have a better idea of if it's feasible, but it could potentially get bumped next year.
I had someone who lives on South Street come up to me recently talking about how from the road to the sidewalk, their driveway is elevated.
It's that 17.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm wondering, is that something that's included
Yes.
in the project?
Well, so we are replacing the sidewalk in front of that property, and we're replacing the water line immediately below their driveway. So that little bit of apron will get replaced at the same time.
Yeah.
We are doing a lot of the aprons at the same time, but I did go out there and look at theirs specifically. And yes.
And that little thing is called an apron?
Yeah, the driveway apron.
Phew, okay. Well, thank you. I love learning infrastructure terms.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks so much, Emily.
So, you're going to stay for the,
Yes, I
Okay.
won't go anywhere.
thank you.
Yeah, following our order, we've got David up next.
So can I sit here? Or should I scoot over there?
It's
Or
fine
does that
over
work?
there.
Okay.
We'll leave Emily.
No, that's fine. So this is just a follow-up from initial sort of discussion we had in early June, a couple meetings ago. So I won't go through it all again, but just a 60-second summary. Town of Middlebury, like most jurisdictions throughout the United States, have certain obligations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. The town was contacted by VTrans earlier in the spring to kind of gently say, how's it going in that department? And we had a very, Emily and I both attended a workshop with a bunch of other municipalities throughout the state. There's a lot of great resources out there that lay out what's required, sort of in layman's language. And I won't, there's 5 basic steps, and I won't go through each one. I did it last time. It's in the packet, so I don't want to use up too much of the time here. Essentially, the first 3 are procedural. The next 2 are a town-wide assessment of all of our ADA barriers, which will eventually have a cost to it, and is a report that's required under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Has to do with your town's facilities, parks, roads, sidewalks, programs, activities. And it's designed to really inform local jurisdictions that here are the barriers you have to now go out and tackle. If you don't do the analysis, you'll never know what to tackle. And I think it's obviously it's a very good concept. So tonight we're presenting the procedures, both the grievance policy and the associated form and the public notice, all of which are required elements of the ADA for our town. If they're approved, how this will work practically is we will post the public notice permanently, physically around town at our facilities and the bulletin boards and on the town's website. We will we'll create a subpage on the website working with Crystal, the current website, then obviously the one that's underway right now to be the new one. So the information will be posted there permanently. In the event the town receives a grievance, which is sort of basically hey, I think there could be a barrier relates to your town's activities. I will be serving as the town's ADA coordinator, which is similar to a lot of other municipalities in Vermont. We'll take the information in following the steps in the procedure. The vast majority of them relate to public works infrastructure, frankly. They're curbs and there could be crosswalks and things like that. Somebody may think there should be certain types of lighting at crosswalks or whatnot. We'll have that conversation, A, to figure out if it's really needed, and B, what's the reasonable pathway that we can do this. My understanding is the ADA is not requiring us to fix it instantly, but you have to make a good faith effort to try to tackle it, and we'll respond to the constituent. I can tell you, talking to the folks who've done this in Rutland and Bennington and Montpelier, they get 1 a year, maybe, or 2. They're not getting inundated by these complaints. Frankly, a lot of them tend to be solved just more informally. Somebody will call Public Works and they put it on a list for the next contract for crosswalk paintings, and it gets resolved. So that's what's being presented tonight. Any questions about, that was the why, but any questions about the what or the why?
So the
Fire
intent
away.
is not to create a web fillable grievance form, but the form will be available from the website.
Yeah, and we can, we have to make the opportunity to, there have to be multiple avenues for people to be able to fill it out. I mean, it goes with the spirit of the law.
Sure.
It's not just, so in theory, somebody could call the office and say, I'd like to present a grievance. Can you take it over the phone? We would do it that way if somebody wanted to come in and do it. So in spirit with the law, there's supposed to be multiple avenues to try to.
And you can do online also.
I think what we'll be doing is posting the form online to be filled out and sent in, but we'll check with our website to see whether a fillable form is
Yeah.
plausible. If not, it certainly will be tackleable in the new website.
We do a lot of mobile forms
Okay.
with that same platform, and they're really easy.
Okay. So it'll be multiple ways to try to, if somebody has that,
Sure.
Yeah.
if somebody has that desire to, and there's avenues for people to submit it on behalf of somebody else if they'd rather not submit it themselves.
They
So,
can scan it and email it too.
yeah, the idea is we really have to make it as easy as possible to get that grievance in to respond to it. And the policies are mirrored at both after the boilerplate language presented by the New England ADA Center, as well as some of the other policies that other towns in Vermont have already adopted and have been using for a few years. So we try not to reinvent the wheel, but rather use the language that's been recommended to us.
And so your process has the appeal go to the infrastructure committee. Is that common practice?
So it's varied a little by town. Montpelier and Rutland, if I'm remembering correctly, have essentially ADA standing committees, if you will. There may not be the exact name, but they were created as part of their compliance efforts with the ADA. But since the issues most logically tend to relate to infrastructure, at least practically, in theory, they could be a complaint that, you're holding a youth program on the second floor of a building that has no elevator. So can you bring it down to the first floor? In theory, that's a possibility that we would have to talk to Parks about. But practically, most of it does. It's more capital infrastructure related.
Yeah.
So we logically felt that if somebody didn't like the initial response from the town, from me, Frank, from the manager's office, we could present it to a larger. They could appeal it, and they could have a larger conversation about whether there's a need to get a
That
different
makes sense,
result.
and I don't think we need.
We don't really have another body. Yeah, we don't have another body that really could handle that and is substantively related to it. So.
Any other comments or questions?
Okay. There you go.
Really good crowd.
Motion? I'll move to approve the proposed ADA grievance procedure, related grievance complaint form, and ADA public notice for the town of Middlebury.
Second.
Excellent. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Heather's on the ball. We're
Aye.
there. Aye.
Aye.
Yeah. All in. Very good.
All right. Wants
David.
more work for the infrastructure committee. That was an enthusiasm there.
I saw that.
Nice
Thanks,
going.
everybody.
Thank you. Kathleen, the next item is yours.
I'm going to hand
Emily.
it over to Emily.
Perfect,
She
there you
is
go.
our flood
There's a good boss.
plan.
The
So
application for-
application for watershed protection program, emergency watershed protection program, to the residents that were here this evening that suffered some of the stream bank scour and concerns, the ones with the garage that's now perched,
Yeah.
have asked the town to partner on this. Kathleen, you might be able to describe it better, but it's essentially the town it serves the resident, but the town, they have to have municipal support to
I've seen this
allow-
before.
Proposed application to the Emergency Watershed Protection Program for the property at 468 East Main Street in Middlebury.
Second. Lindsay.
Lindsay got it. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
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 Very good. We're just a unanimous group. Thanks so much,
Easy stuff.
Kathleen and Emily. Joe, the time has come.
Busy Joe.
We were 10 minutes ahead of schedule, and then the flood happened.
You're not spending a lot of time in this room this week, daily, in fact. Hi, everybody. Hello to Heather and Fred and Laura zooming in. I'm Joe McVeigh here in my capacity as chair of the ILSI 100 project team, just with an update on what's happening with library plans. And the update is we are at the single most exciting part of this project, so far. And I think many of you have had a chance to take a look at these plans. We've had 3 different firms submit some really interesting and different approaches to the problems that we set for them. And so the library trustees, the library staff, our professional advisory group of architects, the project team have all been looking at these quite closely. This week, yesterday, today, and again tomorrow, we've been spending 2 hours with each of these architect and design teams, in part so that we can get a better feel for their designs and exactly how they work, and perhaps even more so we get a sense of what we're referring to as their team collaborative communication skills, or kind of what's their chemistry with each other, what's their chemistry with us, do they listen well, are they responsive? I have to say that so far, the 2 firms that we've spoken to have all had, I don't think I should call it a complaint, but have all pointed out that our design competition has put them in a position which is very different from the ways that they normally like to work, because a good architect is going to work with their client and ask them a lot of questions And we haven't really permitted them to do that. We have rather set them a very detailed scope of what it is that we're looking for, and they've responded to it, but they've had to respond to it kind of in a vacuum. So I think they've welcomed the chance to come in front of us and to talk with us. And our first two meetings have been very, very positive. We're looking forward to another one tomorrow. Meanwhile, we're really hoping to get a lot of positive feedback from the public. And on Thursday, by about noon, we'll have these designs up on display in the library lobby. There will be a little explanation of what's going on and some comment cards, and we'll invite the public to take a look at these design concepts and give us some feedback. We're a little concerned about this. And the reason that we're concerned is because it's a little difficult to wrap your mind around the concept of a concept, which is to say, these, in the olden days, if you were going to design a building, you'd sketch it out on a piece of paper and you'd show it to somebody. And these days, they've got real snazzy computer stuff. And so they sketch it out on the computer, and pretty soon it looks like you've got a finished building. And they've got all kinds of things, they can zoom you through it in 3D, and it looks very impressive. And so then you have to back away from that and say to people, this building is not built. This is just an idea. And people tend to get wedded a bit to the visual impact. It's very, very strong. So we're trying to emphasize to people, if you don't like the facade of the building, we can change that. It can be something else. If you don't like where the children's room is, we can change that, so that we're really still in a conceptual stage. What we're really hoping for is a good turnout at our public meeting on Wednesday, August 9th at 6:30 at the Town Hall Theater, when all three of these architecture firms will present their designs to the public. We're also interested to see how they go about doing that. And again, we'll be getting some feedback from them. We also hope that most of you on the select board have had a chance to look at these. Lindsay, I think Ruth Hardy's in touch. It just texted you, okay? And I think Heather, Ken Perrine might be in touch with you. And when Brian is back, I think Jim Gish will try to spend some time with him to look at those plans. Last Thursday, Dana and I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. John Flowers, the reporter of the Addison Independent next door, and to share with him in general terms kind of what's been happening. And I think there'll be an article in Thursday's newspaper, kind of outlining what's going on, and hopefully we'll be able to give them some more details later on. It is a design competition, so what we're trying to do is to get the information out to the public, but in an even-handed kind of way, so that we're able to point out the distinctions between the design, but not favor any particular one. So it's been great being where we are now. We feel like we've got a lot of momentum. It's an exciting time. And Dan and Farhad are in on the ground floor. And I don't know if you guys have any comments to add, or if there are any other comments or questions.
This is a really fun stage. These architectural firms are really good, and the displays that they've got look like they could build a building tomorrow. The displays are outstanding.
They have small 3D models that you can
Neat.
look at.
Oh, cool.
It's very revealing, I think, and how different they are from each other.
Yeah, all three.
They come from a
concepts are
very
completely
different perspective. Now, one of them said this should look like this. The other one had a totally different idea about what it should look like. But our group has so many questions to them, very good questions, and they have answered.
We've been really benefited from having this professional advisory group of architects, Glenn Andress, Tom Keefe, and David Hamilton, who see things that we don't and ask perceptive questions that we don't think about. As you know, we're offering each of these firms a stipend of $5,000. And according to our design advisory team, we're getting way, way, way more than our money's worth from these guys, like $25,000.
I think we should give the credit to the ILSA 100 team also. The GBA made a comment yesterday, and the people from GBA, they said, this is a totally different group of people we are working with. than the last time they did. It looks more diverse, more educated. I think we put in a lot more work than the previous one, I think.
Well, and again, I think we have to give a lot of credit to Judith Harris,
Yes.
who has really facilitated this process flawlessly and very fairly, and has done a tremendous job. And we also heard kudos from the the professional advisory group on the quality of the submissions we got. One of them said, I've seen a lot of design competitions, and the firm that won the competition was nowhere near as good as any of the firms that we have. So we're feeling good about it.
A couple other interesting things. The bathtub is in each of the designs. The bathtub,
Oh,
The bathtub from the
you can
children's.
find it. They specifically have in there because they listen. And as what our previous discussion, they all include solar. So instead of waiting till later, it's there. Whether we can fund that solar is another.
There's a lot of discussion about sustainability and energy efficiency. It did occur to me that the trustees originally put together a vision for the future of the library, which was to be a welcoming, accessible, safe, and flexible community hub, sustainable into the future. And it occurred to me that the reason that was our vision was because we do not feel that the present building is welcoming, accessible, safe, et cetera. So we realized that we've been very close to this project for the past year and a half, 2 years plus, and the fact that we're so close to us sometimes makes us forget that the entire community may not be quite as aware as we are of these issues. So we hope to. We thank the Addison Independent and other
Who's sneaking out?
other
Not very well, but
other sources for helping us get the word out of the need. So. Yes, I'm urging you to talk it up. Absolutely.
Yeah, I spent some quality time looking at the plats, the drawings with Joe, and the different approaches are just awesome.
Yeah.
Really neat.
It's really exactly what we wanted from a design competition, was to get ideas. And as Dan will repeat, we're really not hiring a design. We're really looking for a team to work collaboratively with us, and there will be many, many more opportunities for community input once we move ahead. And I would remind the board that we do have funds committed in this year's capital campaign to move ahead with schematic design.